There are 6 keys to a power fundamental brand that you need to implement into your business. And if you do so, you're going to help your business hit peak performance. Stay with me today as we discuss the power brand. Hi, my name is Kevin May, and welcome back to our site of Business Actuators. Today we're actually looking at the power brand. It's part of our series where we're talking about the power fundamentals. We talked about the brand, the leadership, and strategy. You put those 3 together, and that's how you hit peak performance in a business. Today we're going to be looking at 6 key fundamentals that need to be implemented into a brand that make it powerful so that you can have success. Let's begin. First of all, let's define what it means to actually have a brand and what a brand is. The expression of what and why you do what you do. In other words, it's your reputation that is on the line. It is something that people think about you, and it is why you're actually doing what you do. It helps you to decide how people think about you. You are offering up a product, you're offering up in a certain way with a certain ambition, and that then allows people to react in a certain way. It is that brand that is put together that enables you to have the reputation and the reaction that you want from your customer base, from your employees, from the community. So let's begin at this first key ingredient. The first one is purpose. The purpose really is the why. And I know that when you started your business, or if you were a part of a startup, or if you kind of understand the history of your business, the why was probably one of the first things that was asked. Why are we starting this business? Why are we getting involved in the business? Who are our customers? What products are we going to offer? What is the culture of the company? You ask so many questions. Why do you exist? The problem that you're going to solve. Who are we going to serve? You come up with that avatar. You really, in your mind, create that customer base and say, these are the people. I can imagine them. They're a certain maybe age or a certain geographic location. They have a certain problem. There's a certain issue. And I can imagine those people. And now I have this product, and I'm going to offer that to my customer base. And so that's where we get the why. The brand starts out with that why, and you need to take a little bit of time to, if you haven't already, pull out a piece of paper, open up a doc, open up something, and begin to write down some of these ideas, because it is so important that this base fundamental, this brand be established in your mind, because we're going to see that not only do you need to understand it, but it is going to affect your leadership team. It's going to affect your strategy. It's really going to affect the entire company, your customers, and the culture that you're establishing. So here's the first one, the purpose. Why do we exist? The second key ingredient that we're going to be looking at is the promise. The promise is, what do people expect from you? Now, we've taken this why, okay? We understand that you're the people, that this is the product or the service or whatever we have. And now when we understand that, we're now going to begin to place it in front of people, or we're going to begin to give it to individuals. When we do that, now the promise is, what are we expecting others to expect from us? So in other words, what are our customers, first of all, what are they going to expect? And so this is the promise. We're going to say that I understand that you have this problem. I now am going to come in and I'm going to promise that I will solve it. This is how I'm going to solve it. This is what is expected of me. But we also, when we're looking at our brand, we also include partners that help us maybe to fulfill that promise. What is the relationship that I have with those partners? There needs to be an understanding of that relationship. There needs to be an expectation. And then the third area in this promise is our employees. If you have an employee base, what is the promise that you've given to them? What are they expecting from me? Right. It might be the idea of just an atmosphere. We want to have a fun. We want to have a scientific atmosphere. Whatever that promise may be, we have brought in our employee base, and we need to make sure that we keep our promises to that employee base, that we're maybe training them, we're giving them all that they need for them to be able to fulfill their mission. Our brand is really laying that foundation down to say these are the promises that we are offering and that people are expecting from us. So this is a part of our brand that we have a purpose, now we have a promise, and we take it to that third category, which is actually our position. Our position really is our value or our differentiator. Basically, this is what makes us distinct in our message. To begin with, the first thing that you would do is basically just say, this is my story. What is the story of the company? Now, what that does is that it helps you to fulfill your purpose and your promise. It gives you value. It gives the character. It gives you the opportunity to say that maybe I have this many years of experience, or we have an understanding of this environment. We know how to do whatever it is that we are promising. And so our story is really what is giving us value in what we do. The other area is that basically it makes us unique from our competition. If we really understand the position that we are in and we understand our value and how we differ, then when we look at competition, yes, they're competition and they could take some of our customer base, but when we go to market, we can also put ourselves out there with value and to say that we have differences. This is where we are unique. This is something that we bring to the table that nobody else can bring, or that very few are able to bring this to the table. And so it's important for us to really understand our position within the market so that we understand our story, tell our story. People love to hear stories, but that we're also unique from the competition. The fourth area that we're going to be looking at then is the personality. The personality takes our purpose. Why? Why are we passionate about this? We have this promise that we've promised to everybody. We understand a position that makes us unique. Now we bring in our personality. Because even though there could be very similar people, there could be people that have that passion and the promise, and they understand where they're a little unique. Maybe they have the education and things. But when you bring in this personality, it allows your company to be so unique because you and your people, you and your company have a personality that you need to develop, you need to establish, you need to make sure that it is there so that when your product, when your service goes to market, it has your personality. That is your brand. And so what are we talking about here? We're talking about traits. We're talking about what others use to describe you. So really, we think about that from a personal level. When we meet somebody, we might say, well, how would somebody describe me? How would somebody describe my personality? And they might say, well, he's witty, or he's sharp, or he's a very somber type of guy. He's very straightforward. He's kind of a jokester. He loves to have fun. And when we look at this, you might be thinking, well, I don't want that. Well, what you do is you need to understand what is it that describes you. What traits, when people think about your company? Okay, we're not talking about your professional attributes. We're not talking about your knowledge base. We're talking about how you approach a situation. Let's use maybe just an illustration here. We think about somebody that is an event planner, somebody that maybe is going to do children's parties and activities, and you might think of that person being very jolly and light and just all kinds of excitement and things like that. On the other hand, and not to be morbid here, but think of it like somebody like a funeral director. You're not going to have the same characteristics. Now, they might have the same planning, the same type of people, the same, maybe even the venue, but their attitudes and actions toward that situation are going to be just a little bit different. You have a personality that you can bring to the table, that you can bring into your company and allow that personality to be projected. This is really where you bring in your values. This is where you bring in your qualities, your beliefs. This is your voice that you really bring to the table. And so it could be something where that when somebody comes to you, you're always straightforward. You're going to tell them the truth right off the bat. What is it that makes you who you are? That's the personalities. Now, as we continue on, the fifth area then is where I'm afraid a lot of people want to begin almost with their brand, and that is the promotion. Now, what are we talking about when we talk about promotion? The promotion is what we would call anything associated with it. That's your logo, your name, your color, your fonts, the images, your tagline, all of those things that are associated with your brand is really here at step 5. One of the last things that you really will do. When we think about this, why is this here at the end? Many times it's like, well, we need a logo and we need this, this image. And what is, in reality, it's one of the last things you do, because when somebody thinks about your logo, what are they thinking about? You don't want somebody just to be thinking about just this object. Think about Apple. Of all things, an apple, that's their name. What did that mean? Well, if we'd have said that, 40 years ago, they'd have said, well, let's go pick some. But now, usually when people think of Apple, it kind of depends on the context, but a lot of times they think of computers, or they think of phones and electronic devices. They think of a company. Where did that come from? It came from, yes, they've got a logo, but it really came from all of the information of who they are, what they represent, all of those things pulled together and then applied to an Apple image and a name. And so when you think of this logo, when you see that logo on the back of a computer, laptop, or you hear the name Apple, there's a concept that comes to your mind, and that is tied back really to the brand. And so when we think about promoting our brand, the associations need to be there so that people can see, who you are, their marketing products and things. But then second of all, and this is really where I do believe marketing comes in. The marketing is basically the highlight and the awareness of a brand. So when you think about your brand, you think about who you are, what you represent, you think about your product, the people, the culture. But then as you think about going to market, this is really where you can look at it as if it was like let's say a 4-lane highway. Sometimes that 4-lane highway, you might just pick out one of those lanes and say, this is all we're going to advertise right now. This is all we're going to market, and this is how we're going to market. And you want to make sure that that one lane is made aware to the people, to the customers. But this is really what marketing does. And that's the reason it's so important that you have your brand established, you know where it is before you begin to market. Because if you are marketing without a brand, what are you really marketing? What is it that you're trying to offer? What is the culture? What are the people? What is the promise? What is the hope? What is it that you're really trying to represent? And so it's so important that you have that brand established, and then you begin to market. And so the promotion is involving both the associations, the logo, the name, the color, but also your marketing strategy, and to be able to get that out. That right there makes up the brand, the key ingredients that make up a power brand: the purpose, the promise, the position, the personality, and the promotion. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a bonus here. So many times when people think of a brand, they think of, well, I've done that. I've got my logo. I've got kind of what I am and who I am. What I want you to understand is that your brand is alive. Now, if you want to use a P to stay with the alliteration there, I would put powerful in there. Your brand needs to be alive, or it needs to be powerful in all that you do, because your brand is actually tied to your leadership team. It is tied to who you are, and it is tied to your strategy. There's 3 things that I want you to think about in thinking about making your brand alive. The first one is that always work in your brand. Now, what does that mean? It means that your brand is basically, it's like a guardrail. Once again, going back to this road analogy, your brand is kind of that guardrail that establishes who you are, what you're offering your people, the culture, and so you stay within those guardrails. And so they need to be established, they need to be secured, they need to keep you in line, so that if somebody says, hey, would you like to do this? No, it's outside of the guardrail. No, I'm not going to do that. Hey, what about this group of people? No, they're really not our type of people of what we're trying to work toward. What about, no, this is in our guardrail. This is working within the guardrails, working within your brand. Now, the second area is always work on your brand. Now, it's going to sound like I'm contradicting myself of what I just stated, but you want to make sure that your brand stays relevant, and you always want to make sure that you're working to make your brand better. So let's go back to that road illustration. If you think about that 4-lane highway and we've got the guardrails, those guardrails are not going to be moved because that's your brand. It's going to keep you from doing things outside of what your scope is. On the other hand, you might say that, well, we had that 4-lane highway. It's getting pretty busy. We're going to expand it to a 5th lane. Now, that's going to make it relevant. That's going to make it really meeting the needs of your people, of your culture. You are expanding your scope. You're expanding what you're doing. Now, it could very easily, you could be going into 3 lanes. Maybe that 4th one, it wasn't working and we needed to pull it in so that we only have 3 lanes. In any case, what you've done is it's not the fact that you just haphazardly just said, well, let's just move these guardrails and things. No, you planned that out. It's intentional. And so you are working on your brand. You're continually improving. You're continually making it relevant. But when you pull that brand in, you pull the guardrails in or you pull the guardrails out. And everybody in the company, everybody in your customer base, your vendors, they all need to understand we now offer this or we're no longer going to offer this. It's very intentional because you're working not only in your brand, guardrails, but you're working on your brand, making sure that it stays relevant. And the third one is something that I think is so important, and you need to make sure that you're working with your brand. What I mean by that is that you need to have the passion of your brand. Why we do what we do. And so that means as you think about leadership and you're hiring people or you're coming up with a strategy, they need to fit within that brand and understand that brand so that the entire team has the culture, has the passion, has the understanding of how we treat customers, how we do things. You establish that brand for a reason, work with it so you keep the passion. Today we've talked about the 6 essential keys to that power brand. I hope that you've taken the time to write these thoughts down. As you want to see your company hitting peak performance and being that successful company that you want to be, it needs to have that power brand. Thanks for being here today at another session of Business Actuators. Have a great day.